Yes, the time has finally come to go through the houses one by one, starting with the first house. Hola, beautiful souls. Welcome back or welcome to my channel, where we use astrology, spirituality, and wellness as self-development tools to become our highest selves. If that sounds like something you're interested in, be sure you don't forget to subscribe before you leave, and you can follow me on Instagram, where there's a lot more background content and additional astrology, spirituality content, etc. Today is all about the first house in astrology. What the heck are the houses all about? What do they even entail? Why are they so dang important? They are one of the deciding factors in your birth chart that really separate your experience as a soul here on this planet from other souls on this planet. We're going to start the video talking about why the houses are so important. To give you a little introduction, we're going to talk about what the first house reveals, so be sure that you watch that section before watching your specific planet placements, because that'll help you understand so much better what the first house is all about. Then we're going to talk about what it means if you have a stellium in the first house and what a stellium even is. Then we're going to talk about what it means if you have an empty first house. Then we will have a whole section dedicated to each planet in the first house. So timestamps will be provided. That way you can jump to your placements after you have watched the segment about the first house itself. To begin, let's talk about why the houses are so important. In modern astrology, everyone tends to place so much focus on the signs and the planets, constantly watching for the next Mercury retrograde, the next full moon, and obsessing over the inherent qualities of their birth chart's planet and sign placements. And all of that is important, but all of these planetary movements and qualities of the signs would hardly matter if the houses didn't exist. To somewhat simplify the zodiac signs versus the planets versus the houses, I want you to think about it this way. The zodiac signs themselves represent certain values or viewpoints towards life, whereas the planets themselves represent more internal, psychological, emotional, etc. They represent the more internal drives that we may have towards life. The houses show the specific areas of life and situations where the energy of the planets and zodiac signs will be occurring. So to give you a better visual, something that really helped me is literally thinking of the houses as houses. The houses themselves are actual, you can visualize them as actual physical homes that belong to the planet and the sign that rule over that house, and you are trying to traverse that specific house belonging to that specific planet and zodiac sign. Whereas the zodiac signs are divided into 12 sections in relation to the movement of the planets, the houses are actually the division of the Earth's own daily rotation on its axis. Therefore, houses allow us a much more intimate connection to the energy of the planets in relation to what is physically happening on Earth. This is the reason that your precise time of birth is so vital to fully comprehending your birth chart's placements, because the houses are rotating according to the Earth's daily axis rotation, meaning that the houses move according to a 24-hour rotation, so they move quite rapidly. This is how horoscopes are mapped and recorded so precisely, because they are following the movements of the houses, which move very rapidly. And because the houses move so rapidly, they are very specific to each person. This is similar to the concept of the inner and outer planets. The inner planets are the planets that are closer to the sun, therefore they have a faster orbit. And because they have a faster orbit, they move through each zodiac constellation at a much faster rate, meaning that you're less likely to share those placements of your personal planets, such as your Mars, Mercury, Venus. You're less likely to share those placements with people, whereas the outer planets, you're more likely to share that placement with a whole generation of people because their orbit takes so long. But again, the houses are based on the Earth's axis rotation, not on the orbit of the planets and their movement through the 12 zodiac signs. It's based on the 24-hour rotation of the Earth every day. Now, not only do the houses move at a fast pace, but they are directly connected to the Earth itself, which is another thing that makes them so vital. As Howard Sasporta states in his book, The 12 Houses, in this way, the houses become the frame of reference through which the potentialities of a planet and sign combination could be related to the actual events and concerns of life. Without the structure of the houses, astrologers cannot bring the significance of celestial events down to earth. Houses, conceived in their totality, they unfold a process of supreme significance, the story of emergence and development of a human being. Now let's talk about what the first house itself reveals to us. The first house is commonly referred to as the house of self, ruled by Aries and the planet Mars. It is seen as the house where our soul's journey begins, the starting point. The first house is part of what's referred to as the first quadrant, which consists of the first, second, and third house. The houses within this quadrant are generally focused more on your self-discovery and personal development. And if you want to know more about the quadrants and understand them better, you can watch my video on them. That will be linked above in the cards for this video. But the cusp of the first house is also referred to as the ascendant, which is what our ascendant sign, popularly called the rising sign, is referring to, the zodiac sign that was on the ascendant at the time of your birth. Again, you can refer to my video on the rising sign if you want to know more. I also have an entire playlist dedicated to rising sign videos specifically. But essentially, the ascendant is so significant to our lives because it is considered our very first astrological step in our soul's path, meaning that our ascendant will reveal a lot about the way we perceive and navigate our lives. Every time we encounter something new, a new situation, a new endeavor, whatever it might be, we tend to use our ascendant as the lens through which we navigate. The methods we choose to approach life are highly dependent on our ascendant sign. Therefore, signs and planets that reside in the first house indicate the kinds of ways or events or situations or pathways we can take that would be most valuable in the process of realizing our own unique identity. As for planets that are within the first house at the time of your birth, these planets tell us more about the specific actions and methods we can use to get closer to our soul's true essence, to bring us back to who we are at our very core. And because the first house is so connected to the beginning of our soul's journey, and therefore it's very connected to new birth, the birth of something new, the first house can tell us a lot about a person's formative younger years, especially around the time that they were a toddler, because the planets in this house can tell us a lot about how we can better come back to our true selves and discover ourselves. It's essentially offering a lot of insight on how to return to our inner child. If we wanted to find the map to our inner child, the first house is a great place to look. It may not be the only place, but it is a wonderful place to begin stripping back those layers. Because essentially, when we choose to strip away the inauthentic layers that life has caused us to wear, we find our true essence once again, which is heavily revealed in the first house. If you feel like you've lost your way or you really have lost touch with your authentic self, the first house can provide a lot of intimate, constructed details around the way that you can return to that nature of your authentic self. It is also believed that planets in the first house, as well as the sign that's on your first house cusp, which is again your ascendant sign, can reveal a lot about how you physically present yourself, your physical features, and your physical aura as to how others are perceiving you. Now let's talk about stelliums and having a stellium in the first house. A stellium is when you have 3 or more planets grouped into the same house or zodiac sign. Stelliums are significant because this cluster of planets will inevitably exchange energy and place a heavy emphasis on the house they're residing in, revealing a powerful and obvious channeling of energy in that specific area of your life. Typically, the houses we have planets in are pointing us to the areas of our lives that need more attention, where there is more potential for growth and mastery. So if you have 3 or more planets grouped into your first house, this indicates a need in your life to develop a true sense of authenticity and independence. It's likely that you'll encounter a lot of themes and lessons in your life that connect back to your need to follow your authenticity, to assert yourself, to embody who you are, to embrace who you are, etc. The specific planets of your stellium will shed light on these specific actions and pathways that can lead you closer to this sense of personal freedom on your journey of self-discovery. Now let's talk about what it means if you have an empty first house. First off, the empty house slander and fear needs to stop. It is completely misunderstood. Just like I mentioned in the stellium section, that a house that contains a lot of planets usually means that there's a huge focus and invitation for self-development in that specific area of your life. Therefore, an empty house means pretty much the opposite. It simply means that if there's no planets in that house, there's no critical emphasis on development in that area of your house. Not that we can't develop that area or that we shouldn't, but it is not as critical as those that have the energy of planets present within them. Meaning that this house's energy probably flows a bit more effortlessly in your life than those houses that have planets residing in them. This doesn't mean the house is insignificant though. You can still observe the general energy of your empty house by looking into the sign that lies on the cusp of that house. For example, if your first house cusp is placed in Libra, you can look to this sign and its planetary ruler for more information on the energy of your first house. Having an empty first house specifically may mean that you tend to be more comfortable with who you are, in your own skin, living as your authentic self. It's likely that you know yourself quite well and you express yourself easily and naturally assert your attributes in the world without hesitation. Now for the section you've all been waiting for, each planet in the first house and what it means. However, I'm going to do this section a little bit more podcast style, and if you are listening on my podcast, just ignore this part. I know you want to see my pretty face. I know you want to see my face. In order to save my camera the trouble of overheating and to save memory and not make this video as crazy huge, I am going to do this section podcast style so you can just put me on and listen. You don't need to watch this section of the video. And remember, if you do want to actually listen to me podcast style, you can now access my podcast. I will have that link in my description below. So that way you can listen to these types of videos whenever you want, wherever you want, and you don't have to open up YouTube. Anywho, let's dive into what each planet means in the first house. The sun in the first house. The sun itself represents our individual identity in the world and the way we showcase ourselves in our lives. Therefore, whatever sun the house resides in will illuminate where in life we should exude this unique identity of ours and what area of life we need to radiate in. It's likely that whichever house the sun is placed in will be the area of life that you experience healthy challenges and obstacles around your identity, bringing you obstacles that challenge your sense of self and the way that you choose to exert your sense of self in the world. With the sun being a celestial body that places such a focus on how we radiate our identity, and the first house being the house that emphasizes our true essence and self-discovery, having the sun in the first house indicates that this individual probably exudes a magnetic, warm aura that naturally influences and draws others in, kind of like the sun itself. It's also very important to note whether your sun and your ascendant are in the same sign. When the sun is in the first house, it's common for it to share the same zodiac as your ascendant, in which you'd be referred to as a double Pisces or a double Scorpio, etc. This is likely to be the type of person that values taking their own path in life and leading their own journey, rather than allowing anyone or anything external to dictate the path for them. It's also this type of attitude towards their journey that can draw people in, potentially making them a natural leader as well. Wherever the sun is placed in the chart tends to be where a lot of energetic focus goes in the chart, which is why the sun sign is considered to be so important in our lives. So the potential challenge for the sun being in the house of self is that this person is, in fact, quite selfish and egocentric at times, due to the fact that the sun is illuminating their self-perception, possibly making the individual a bit too self-centered and concerned with gaining recognition simply for the sake of notoriety or status. Physically, These individuals may radiate an aura of magnetic confidence that automatically makes them attractive to others. It's possible that they have more slender traits attributed to their energetic demeanor and or certain traits that are highly pronounced and draw attention just like the sun itself. There could be something unforgettable about the way that they appear or the way that they dress. The moon in the first house. The moon in astrology represents our emotional nature, how we respond emotionally and intuitively to various situations we're faced with in daily life, as well as our emotional needs, such as what we need in order to feel emotionally and mentally replenished. The house position of the moon in your chart tells us the area of life we turn towards when we need that emotional and mental replenishment from external circumstances. Having the introspective moon placed in the house of self signifies someone whose emotional pattern tends to be heavily influenced by the outside world. Whereas the sun in the first house stood quite strong in their own identity and position in the world, those with moon in the first house might find that they are a bit sensitive and more susceptible to their immediate environment, having a tendency to consciously or unconsciously mold themselves to fit the environment they're in. The individual's intuition and emotional responses tend to take center stage in their lives, causing them to often have a well-attuned sixth sense that allows them to be amazingly perceptive of their energetic environment. This is one of the ways they can emotionally and mentally morph into what their environment calls for at any moment. This is what can often give them a naturally kind, nurturing demeanor that draws others in. Since the moon is the mother of astrology, there can be a motherly energy here as well. But not only can they seem somewhat motherly to others, but many times others naturally want to mother them as well. Much of their journey to self-discovery will involve discovering themselves despite the emotional needs of others. Because they are so attuned to their emotional environment, including their own, it can be easy for them to fall victim to their own irrational feelings or thoughts. They may become overly consumed with the emotions and needs of others, or they may find that they look too much to being babied and nurtured emotionally by others. Each scenario will only create more fog around who they really are and what can bring them closer to living authentically. Physically, the moon in the first house can lean towards softer, delicate, feminine features, or they can give off this generally delicate energy that causes them to be perceived as a softer person. Mercury in the first house. In astrology, Mercury governs the energy around various forms of communication, articulation, and the mental activity. It will often help us identify the ways in which we most effectively communicate, how we prefer to communicate, and how we process information and our mentality. The house that Mercury resides in can give us insight into what area of life captures our curiosity and stimulates our mind. Oftentimes, its house placement can reveal where in life we are able to truly expand the mind and our knowledge if we lean into that area of life. Individuals that have Mercury in the first house are likely to be openly inquisitive and vocal about how they perceive life. It's through this forthright yet analytical nature that they'll come to learn much more about themselves, which is the focus of the first house. Being open to both sharing and learning information and ideas in life can set them on a pathway that leads to a clearer relationship with who they are. It's also important to note that having Mercury in the first house places emphasis on not only mental expansion in terms of intellect, but also in terms of mental health. Because the mind takes an even more prominent role by being placed in the first house, their internal dialogue will take a large center stage in their lives, meaning that the mind will be the key to healing many mental struggles and perceptions. The same way that an individual with this placement can be endlessly curious and open to learning, their mind can also serve as a mental trap, harboring their own negative perceptions and judgments of the world around them. This is where the zodiac sign that Mercury is placed in comes into play. But if it is closely aspecting the ascendant sign or another planet, these are also extremely impactful to Mercury's expression here. However, to better understand what I mean by the fact that the mind could be a trap, I mean that if this person tends to have particular perceptions of the world that they're dissatisfied with, They need to begin with working to change their perceptions and therefore changing their life in a more positive direction if and only if they're willing to begin rewiring their mind and leaning into their psyche. If a person with Mercury in the first is willing to lean into their mind through their own thoughts and mental habits, this person can become a powerful teacher, thought leader, or distributor of ideas in some way. And as for appearance, it is also believed that those with Mercury in the first house may maintain a youthful look physically, or just have a youthful air about them in general. This is due to Mercury being considered a somewhat sprightly, energetic planet connected to the image of Hermes himself. Venus in the first house. In astrology, Venus governs the energy around love, partnerships, beauty, and creation. It can help us identify the ways in which we approach love, how we seek partnership or connection, what we want to create in the world and how we create it, and which aesthetics we're drawn to. The house containing Venus can allow us to see where in life we find true, fulfilling connection to the material realm and to other people. It can give us a better idea of what we value and how we prefer to connect with the artistic and sensual side of ourselves. Its house can also reveal a lot around where we struggle when it comes to connection to others due to our own insecurities or our own ego. As Venus connects us to physical senses and physical environment, the ego can show up here in its own way. Having Venus in the first house will denote an important relationship with uncovering their own self-worth and inner confidence, especially through the ways in which they choose to relate and build connection. As Venus is a planet so heavily connected to partnerships, especially romantic ones, Venus in the first can cause this individual to place a heavy focus on loving someone and being loved equally by someone, having a heavy desire to create meaningful, loving connections, partially because Venus in the first often loves to be adored and admired. Although it's often that they don't have to try very hard to be loved and admired, as Venus in the first can naturally give someone an aura of warmth, charisma, and possibly even seduction that attracts those who are curious about the person. Again, because the ego can operate here, this desire for love or admiration can cause this person to be overly focused on external validation, possibly developing codependent patterns in love and friendships or resorting to manipulative habits to coerce others into doing what they want. At their best, someone with this placement exudes effortless warmth and kindness, placing value in simply being a genuine, compassionate, confident individual that connects with and inspires others through their warm, self-assured demeanor. Physically, these individuals may pay attention to detail in how they look or won't even require much effort to appealing to others. They may appear to carry themselves with an attractive grace and ease that makes them naturally alluring. Mars in the first house. Mars in astrology governs energy regarding our ambitions, physical drives, and assertion in the world. It really helps us identify in what ways we are best at channeling our physical energy and expressing our vitality. The house containing Mars will tell us more about the area of life in which we tend to physically exert ourselves the most, take initiative, and discover our independence. It can also be the area of life where we are overridden with passion, may experience physical overwhelm of some kind, and a sense of competition. Similar to Venus being connected to the ego in its own way, Mars is the other planet that can heavily connect us to the areas of our ego we're operating from. This is because Mars is the planet most connected to our physical drive and reactions, keeping us connected to the instinctual, animalistic urges that live within us all. Mars being in the first house is highly significant to the energy of the overall chart because Mars is the ruling planet of the first house. The energy of Mars will be even more prominent and amplified if it is within 10 degrees of the ascendant and or if the ascendant falls in Aries itself, because Aries is also the sign that rules over the first house. Therefore, Mars will be quite a dominant energy in this person's chart when placed in the first house. Mars here can indicate a person that is extremely forthright and physically expressive, often unafraid of how their words or actions might affect others because they aren't afraid to take life head on. They have a strong desire to speak and act authentically to who they are, making them an honest individual that isn't afraid to confront a matter or take the initiative on something. Of course, energies from chart to chart won't show up exactly the same for every person, so if someone with Mars in the first tends to be more reserved, this doesn't mean they're afraid of speaking up or confrontation or that they're insecure. It can more so indicate a person that isn't afraid of keeping their thoughts to themselves despite what others may think of that. Perhaps this individual doesn't prefer to bother themselves with those that they believe can't comprehend their honesty. Oftentimes, people don't just judge the outspoken individual, they also tend to judge the one that doesn't say anything. Either way, having Mars in the first house tends to make this a person that is unbothered by how their actions are perceived as long as they're living honestly, contributing to their spirit being one that dives into life's past and challenges headfirst if it means obtaining something that matters to them. Of course, with Mars taking a large role in how this person expresses themselves, anger management and healthy physical exertion takes a massive role in this person's overall well-being. Routine physical activity is a must for them, but they're most likely to feel the most physical release and relief taking up a physical activity that allows them to channel their aggression, such as boxing, karate, etc. This goes hand in hand with evolving into someone that can communicate in a direct yet respectful way, rather than resorting to petty, manipulative tactics or overly aggressive words to get what they want. The reason it goes hand in hand is because by taking up a more aggressive physical activity or just a physical activity in general that allows them to channel this energy, that will give them a healthy channel so they are not channeling it into their interactions and unnecessary moments of frustration. Physically, this person might have what is considered an intense face that is quite expressive and potentially intimidating. More than likely, the person comes off as strong or domineering in some way, and this may reflect in a physical feature of theirs, such as a strong brow bone, a strong jawline, or an athletic physique that is very unforgettable. Jupiter in the first house. Jupiter in astrology governs the energy around how we expand in life, how we explore life, physically, mentally, and spiritually, and how we seek purpose in life. The house containing Jupiter can give us more insight on what area of life we feel the greatest need to explore and grow through, where we naturally desire to experience more of what life has to offer in that domain. This is also the area of life where we aim to uncover that higher meaning or purpose in our lives by applying the events in this area of life with greater meaning or connecting it to our sense of faith, whatever that may or may not be. Due to this need for exploration wherever Jupiter resides, and because Jupiter is connected to the energy of overindulgence, this may also be the area of life where we overexert ourselves in some way and don't quite know when to stop. Jupiter in the first house creates an individual that naturally seeks expansion and isn't afraid to explore different ideals, environments, and ways of life as a means for personal growth. Because of this inherently adventurous, open-minded nature, they can often come off as quite optimistic and even inspirational to others. Others may admire their free-spirited, enthusiastic way of thinking and expressing themselves. Because the first house, the house of self, tells us a lot about the ways in which we perceive the world, someone with Jupiter here perceives many things through the lens of inspiration and spiritual replenishment. It's not necessarily that they are automatically spiritual individuals, but more so that they have a connection to fulfilling their inner spirit through the various wonders of the world. This ties into the idea of self-faith that really plays out in this placement. Jupiter is considered a planet that connects us to the energy of something greater, some form of faith. With Jupiter in the first, this person probably has an undying faith in themselves, even in their perceived shortcomings, their mistakes, and their life's obstacles. This person is able to push themselves to continue the trek due to the strong faith that they will climb and come out on the top of the mountain or they will find the end of the tunnel. As Jupiter is very connected to the journey of life, this person holds the innate belief that their journey is just as important, if not more important, than the destination. The potential challenge with this sense of self-faith is an overinflation of their own confidence and self-perception. Jupiter in the first can sometimes channel into someone as the type of person who deems their own perception and ideas as the dominant perception and ideas. Additionally, if they aren't trying to evolve their idea of self and lean into where they can develop their identity, they can also find that they're unable to reach the summit of the mountain because they're too preoccupied with every different direction and possibility out there that might lead them to the summit. It can be good for Jupiter in the first to know where they need to slow down a bit and reassess the steps they are taking to reach that lofty vision. Physically, these individuals may have slender or elongated features in some way, especially in the face. They may have striking features such as sharp eyes, high cheekbones, perhaps even a large smile, or something large and captivating about their mouth in general. Unusually large features of some kind can definitely be found with those that have Jupiter in the first. Saturn in the first house. In astrology, Saturn governs the energy of discipline, limitation, and tradition. The house containing Saturn can reveal to us what area of life we may encounter the largest feelings of restriction, the most difficulty, a sense of responsibility, and how we apply or experience discipline in our lives. If we try to escape the duties and lessons waiting for us based on where Saturn is placed, we will only encounter even greater hardship in life. Therefore, Saturn's house placement begs us to directly face the challenges in its house of residence in order to experience reward and fulfillment in that area of life. With this intimate connection to the disciplinary, preserving energy of Saturn, this person probably isn't afraid of hard work. Having Saturn in the first house means that the type of hard work that many may shy away from or look down upon, this person is ready to get their hands dirty if it means potentially making something of themselves and garnering respect or admiration in some way. They're likely the type of person that takes pride in their self-reliance and knows that in order to get what they want, they have to go out and get it themselves. Whereas those with Jupiter, the planet of expansion in the first house, tend to view life as a vast opportunity for growth and inspiration, those with Saturn in the first can tend to have a somewhat opposite perspective, potentially viewing life through a pessimistic, skeptic lens that causes them to be wary about venturing out, making them extremely cautious in their approach to life. Not just because they may see the world in a more negative light, but also because they may secretly view themselves in a negative light, having an awkward or uncomfortable connection to themselves physically and mentally. Whereas someone with Venus in the first might naturally embody their sensuality with grace and fluidity, someone with Saturn in the first might be hyper aware of the way that their body moves and feels the rigidity around their physical movement and expression. It's this type of disconnect from themselves that can create a demeanor that seems more aloof and unapproachable to other people. However, despite this cautious, reserved nature, this is the type of person that can truly achieve whatever they set out to do if they are creating a realistic plan to do so. This is because, despite all its potential difficulties, Saturn is not one to give up or go down without a fight, and neither will someone with Saturn in the first house. Physically, these individuals may be more lean overall with sharp, prominent bone structure, whether that be in the face or the body or both. Whatever their look, they'll likely give off a mature, composed aura that can sometimes feel a bit intimidating to others. Uranus in the first house. In astrology, Uranus governs the energy of innovation, nonconformity, and technology. The house that Uranus resides in reveals the area of life where we may naturally think outside of the box and seek to do things our own way. Or it may show us where we should begin thinking outside of the box, challenging our perceived limits and disrupting the status quo rather than staying restricted, which will only lead us to pent-up frustration in that area of life. Uranus in the first house asks this individual to seek out and determine their own truths, thoughts, and beliefs. This person probably has an intriguing thought process and contributes extremely unique ideas to the world, ones that no one has ever heard of before. Unlike some of the other planets in the first house that find themselves through the experiences and interactions they have with others, this individual can think on such an alien plane of thought that they're naturally quite independent or individualistic. Rather than attempting to communicate their thoughts with others or facing the unnecessary judgment of others, they prefer to be left alone with the freedom to dive into their unconventional ways without interruption. This trait is what makes this the type of person that often pioneers and introduces some sort of innovative or unorthodox idea to others, often with the goal to drastically alter traditional thought or structure in some way. Because of this, they often come off as quite eccentric and odd, often being branded as some sort of genius or intellectual phenomenon. It's in this way that this individual can find it difficult to connect with other people. It isn't that they're necessarily afraid of being judged or ridiculed. Oftentimes, they are quite sure of themselves and their own thoughts, beliefs, intellect, but it's more so that their mind doesn't tend to function on the same wavelength as others. They may be naturally charming, humorous, or intriguing for other people to engage with due to their interesting nature, but they themselves may always feel like a bit of an outcast among the crowd. Physically, this person probably has somewhat of an electric atmosphere or appearance. With a mind that is often buzzing with far out ideas, they may have a natural light, spark, or buzz of curiosity in their eyes. They may also stand out in some way, wearing their hair in an unusual way, or wearing unusual clothes, or simply having unusual features. Something about this individual probably stands out from the crowd. Neptune in the first house. In astrology, Neptune governs the energy around the subconscious mind, otherworldly realms, projections, and illusions. The house containing Neptune can give insight into what area of life we attempt to find some sort of comfort or solace, oftentimes sacrificing ourselves in the process. Just as Saturn's house contains difficult yet necessary lessons in that area of life that are meant to evolve us into a more resilient, self-assured individual, Neptune's house will contain a hard lesson around self-sacrifice. Where in life do we yearn for something beyond ourselves to show itself? Where in life do we potentially become disillusioned quite often? It's through Neptune's house placement that we expose a part of life that shatters our ego through the shattering of fantasies. Fantasies that turned out to be an illusion masked as everything that we wished for. It is through this shattering of the ego's fantasies that Neptune's house leads us to turn inward in order to heal, creating a connection to something greater than ourselves. Individuals with Neptune in the first house are often capable of grasping and staying connected to other realms of existence beyond the physical plane. Even if it isn't something they're totally conscious of doing, they are often strongly connected to their intuition, allowing them to feel the energetic undercurrents of their environment and of the collective. By the collective, I mean that these individuals probably have an undeniable connection to the collective consciousness. Whatever energetic trends are happening in the world can often have a large impact on them emotionally. Because they are so heavily connected to the unseen realms of energy and consciousness, it's likely that artistic or spiritual expression of some kind is important for this individual's well-being. It's likely that whatever they create, whether that's music, poems, paintings, etc., will have the power to both heal and inspire others. This provides a positive channeling of this placement's energy and allows them to have a healthy sense of their own identity. When Neptune's influence can easily cause someone to feel lost, hopeless, and confused about their position in the physical realm, having that sense of physical self-identity is so important. Embracing their innate connection to higher realms of consciousness can bring them a greater sense of peace or understanding that there is more to life than just the physical, also allowing them to feel a sort of emancipation from the daily confines or pressures of the physical. Connecting back to their awareness of the collective energy, Neptune in the first house can also indicate someone that carries a strong sense of empathy or sensitivity for everyone around them, somewhat similar to Moon in the first house. This person may find that they're a type of energetic sponge, making it often difficult for them to decipher their own needs, wants, and emotions, as they so easily morph and adjust to the needs, wants, and emotions of others. Many times, this can unconsciously stem from a desire to find acceptance and connection through acting as an emotional and energetic chameleon with the people they encounter. It's possible that they feel doing this is what can bring them some sense of self, as this placement can sometimes feel quite disconnected from their own sense of identity. This is, again, due to the nature of Neptune, a planet that is elusive and tends to mirror and or amplify the energy that it's interacting with, rather than taking the energetic center stage. Because they may struggle with establishing their own sense of self and their own boundaries with the world, they can grow resentful of others if they aren't careful. Physically, this person might have quite a mysterious, quiet, ethereal aura that can't be explained, since Neptune often brings with it the energy of the siren or that of a magical creature such as a fairy. Something about their appearance might be dreamy, perhaps through having bedroom eyes or something else that creates a sultry yet effortless appearance. Pluto in the first house. In astrology, Pluto governs the energy around transformative destruction, death, rebirth, and the psyche. The house containing Pluto can tell us more about what area of life we should actively seek and embrace a rebirth of some kind. Pluto being one of the planets that exposes what is hidden, as it is connected to the concept of the underworld and shadows. Its house placement shows us where our most prominent shadows may reside and where we need to face those shadows in order to positively transmute them into our true essence, helping us become an even stronger, more capable version of ourselves. Continuing to deny these shadows or fight this area of transformation will only bring greater difficulties in a person's life. Those with Pluto in the first house will be no stranger to their own inner darkness, and many times this person will embrace and sometimes take pride in their inner darkness, potentially to a fault. It's likely that this person works in emotional extremes, but unlike individuals with the other water planets in the first house, such as the Moon and Neptune, their emotional volatility or sensitivity probably won't channel itself in a soft or passive way. With the true energy of Scorpio, the Scorpion present, as this is a sign that Pluto rules, they're ready to strike at what emotionally threatens them in some way. When they feel that something or someone is doing something to hinder them, they're often the type to react like a scorpion with its stinger, quick and instinctively. Although this emotional intensity and volatility can sound intimidating, the root of it is their immense passion and connection to everything they encounter. Again, like the Moon and Neptune, they feel everything around them so powerfully. So if this is an individual that chooses to evolve through this placement and use it positively, we can find someone who is some sort of energy reader, spiritual figure, or healer, especially through more unorthodox or occult paths, because again, they feel naturally connected to the darker, unseen shadows of life, and therefore they can transmute this connection into something positive, such as energetic healing or advising. This trait is what also makes them fascinated by the darker mysteries of life in general, and they may take a liking to detective work or something similar. And with this sense of intense grit and passion, they're also likely to have the Plutonian persistence present. When Pluto sets its sights on something, it tends to persist until the outcome is reached. This can definitely channel itself strongly into someone with Pluto in the first, applying the endurance to whatever goal they've set their sights on. Although this person can be quite the powerhouse, Pluto can also bring on very self-destructive behaviors if the person isn't careful with how they embrace this energy. Not only can they cause immense harm to themselves, but it's very possible that they'll hurt others along the way. Again, they can be quick to sting or tackle whatever seems to be getting in their way. And if this natural aggression isn't developed or channeled properly, this placement will only bring more difficulty to their own life. Physically, someone with this placement probably has an intense, piercing gaze that feels either intimidating, magnetic, or both. Their gaze and or facial expression tends to hold a strength that appears as if they can see right through your soul. It's possible that they have darker features or choose to express themselves through a darker style. Again, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell before you leave so it lets me know you want more videos like this one and so you don't miss the future videos like this one. And leave a comment down below if you have any planets in the first house. Which planets do you have? Do you have a stellium? Is it empty? I love to hear about your guys' personal experience because it helps me learn. I'm always a student. I never think I'm the master of anything. So let's all chat below. You can watch these videos here that'll help you so much more on your self-development journey. But until I see you in the next video, thank you so much again for being here. I appreciate every single one of you. Take care. Adios.